The world's largest retailer, Amazon.
Amazon
is now offering its employees money to quit.
Up to 18,000 employees are getting fired starting this year.
Amazon wants their employees to resign. This might sound counterintuitive, but it's true. It turns out that for Amazon, it's actually beneficial to constantly churn through employees. This is actually one of the main reasons that Amazon treats their employees so poorly. Whether it be exposing warehouse workers to safety hazards, making their drivers pee in bottles, or working tech staff to the bone. Amazon does it all, and it looks like their efforts of creating a terrible working environment are playing out perfectly. In fact, Amazon's turnover rate is so high that they measure it on a weekly basis. Amazon loses approximately 3% of their warehouse workers every single week. This translates to an annual turnover rate of 150%. In other words, Amazon's entire warehouse workforce is replaced basically every 8 months. And considering the working conditions of these people, this rate is not too surprising. But why in the world would Amazon want their employees to resign? They likely spent thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on recruiting each and every one of their employees. And let's not forget all of the time and resources they spent on onboarding and training employees. So it doesn't really make sense to sign them on just for 2/3 of warehouse workers to leave in 90 days and their tech workers to leave in 2 years, right? Wrong. It turns out that constantly churning through employees is not only cheaper for Amazon, but substantially more productive. In fact, Jeff Bezos has gone as far as declaring that a tenured workforce is simply a march to mediocrity. As employees become more tenured, they tend to also become more comfortable and more lazy, or at least that's what Amazon thinks. So over the years, Amazon has perfected how to attract employees and push them away at the same time. Essentially, they want you to come in with the big dreams, work your ass off for 2 years, realize that no one recognizes your efforts, and then leave so that the next sucker can come in and do the exact same thing. They've basically mastered the art of running a cutthroat meat grinder. So here's the twisted economics of Amazon and the downright putrid tactics they use to screw over their employees. In terms of how Amazon pushes out blue-collar workers, it's not really rocket science. They basically create a high-pressure, high-stress environment with lofty targets and no downtime. But the way they handle their tech workers is a lot more interesting. As you know, tech workers demand a pretty lofty salary, so Amazon has to employ some pretty clever, yet disgusting strategies. Likely the most notable of these strategies is screwing over their employees with wonky vesting periods. If you're not familiar with vesting periods, it's basically how much time you have to wait until you can cash in on your stock compensation. Most tech companies operate under a 4-year vesting schedule, with stock compensation being evenly split up across the years. At Facebook, for example, employees get 25% of their total stock grant every year, with 6.25% being unlocked every quarter. Google actually takes it to another level in terms of vesting. They not only front-load their stock vesting, but they do vesting on a monthly basis, so it's almost like a monthly salary. Amazon, however, does the exact opposite, as they backload their vesting. Engineers have to wait a full year just for 5% of their stock to vest, and another full year just for 15% to vest. It's not until the 3rd and 4th years that engineers actually receive 80% of their promised stock. This might not sound like a big deal, but if you enter Amazon at a relatively senior level, it really screws you over. For example, let's say you have the option to enter Google as an L6 and Amazon as an L7, which are approximately equal positions in terms of work and responsibilities. On paper, both companies pay approximately the same amount, just over $500,000. Amazon actually pays $30,000 more. But if you made your decision based on these top-line numbers, you'd be making a mistake, and here's why. This stock grant number of $318,000 is not something that you receive every year. It's just an average of what you'll receive over the next 4 years. So Amazon is basically offering you $1.27 million for the next 4 years, and it vests according to this schedule. The same thing applies to Google, but given that they have a much more fair vesting schedule, it's not really to your disadvantage. In fact, here's how both jobs break down over 4 years. During year 1, Google pays $611,000, while Amazon pays $306,000. $306,000 is obviously not a bad amount, but it's only half of Google, despite Amazon's compensation seeming like it was actually higher than Google's. During year 2, Google will pay another $611,000, while Amazon will pay $433,000. During year 3, Google drops to $506,000 while Amazon rockets to $750,000. And during the last year, Google drops further to $401,000 while Amazon stays constant at $750,000. If you're wondering why Google's compensation drops over the years, it's because they're betting that the stock price will increase by the time you receive it. So when you account for stock growth, your compensation should be relatively stable at Google. Amazon will of course also experience stock growth, so their compensation in the last 2 years will likely be over $1 million. But you can bet that they're gonna do everything they can to push you out in the first 2 years. Statistically speaking, neither the average Google nor the average Amazon tech worker reaches 2 years. The average tenure at Google is 1.9 years, while the average tenure at Amazon is 1.84 years. So not a big difference in terms of employee retention, but the difference in compensation is night and day. Given that Google has monthly vesting, an employee leaving at 1.9 years has actually vested over 60% of their stock. An employee at Amazon leaving at 1.84 years, however, won't have even vested their year 2 stock, as they have to finish the year. So they're left with just the 5% that was vested after year 1. In other words, remember that massive $1.27 million stock grant that Amazon offered you when you joined? Well, the average Amazonian will only end up receiving a mere $63,000 of this. The average Googler would have received $571,000 worth of their stock compensation. When you annualize these numbers along with the base salary and bonus, you'll see that the Googler was earning an effective salary of $611,000, while the Amazonian was only earning $274,000, or less than half of what the compensation appeared to be. Again, you can't really complain with either of these salaries, but you can see just how misleading Amazon's top line number was. Now, I should note that Amazon sometimes offers a large cash bonus during year 1 to make up for some of this gap, but that only goes so far and doesn't apply to everyone. Why not just stick around for 4 years? Then you'll get the full promised amount, right? Well, the reality is that this is extremely difficult due to the ACTS, aka PIPs. PIPs stands for Performance Improvement Plans, and Amazon swears by these. Through these plans, Amazon ranks all of their employees every single year, and then they go ahead and fire the bottom 10% every single year. And as you would guess, this policy disproportionately affects new hires, and it creates an extremely toxic work culture. Basically, all of your team members will be trying to backstab you so that they're not the ones who are put on these performance improvement plans. Everyone is trying to survive the 2-year cliff and cash in on the stock compensation that's so close yet so far away. The reality though is that the average employee doesn't even pass 2 years. But let's assume that you're part of the lucky few who make it through the full 4 years. Congratulations, you got a big payday, but now Amazon still wants you to leave. If you survive the first 4 years, it's unlikely that they'll put you on a performance improvement plan and force you out that way. But what they will do is severely nerf your pay and hope that you either leave or stay and work for substantially lower pay. Either option is okay with them. How do they do this, you ask? Well, remember that massive stock grant that they offered you when you joined? Well, let's just say you ain't getting that again. If you're lucky, you may get stock refreshers, but that's usually nothing in comparison to your compensation in year 3 and 4. If you were an L7, for example, your compensation will drop from nearly $1 million down to $300,000, and you're expected to maintain the same level of output if you want to continue avoiding the PIPs. By this point though, most remaining Amazonians don't want to put up with this anymore, so if the PIPs didn't get them, the nerfed pay usually does. If things are so unfair at Amazon though, why do people still join? Well, for delivery drivers and warehouse workers, it's often the only job they're able to find. But what about the tech workers? Surely they're smart enough to see through these tricks and do their research, right? Well, they are. Most of them know all about this, but they choose to join anyway because Amazon is oftentimes the only FANG job that they're able to land. Of course, they could go ahead and join a respectable background company like Visa or Oracle, but that won't make the same impact on their career trajectory that Amazon would. You see, no tech worker is putting up with all this just to work on Amazon retail. All the hype for tech workers is to get into AWS or Amazon Web Services. If you're not familiar with AWS, they're the gold standard when it comes to cloud computing and infrastructure. AWS holds a market share of 41.5% in the cloud computing market, which is more than their main competitors combined. Microsoft comes in at 29.4%, while Google comes in at a measly 2.6%. As such, everyone in the cloud space is looking for ex-AWS employees. In fact, many job postings will literally list AWS experience as a minimum qualification. So many tech workers figure that putting up with Amazon is their best shot at potentially landing a job at a non-abusive FAANG company. And more times than not, this actually does work out. Many of the people who leave Amazon after 1.84 years aren't actually getting fired through PIP. Rather, they were offered an opportunity to join Apple or Google's cloud departments. And if you want any proof regarding just how badly these people want to leave Amazon, just look at all the money they're leaving on the table in year 3 and 4. Amazon doesn't take this as an insult though. They're happy to be a springboard for other FAANG companies, as at the end of the day, they're the ones who got the most labor for the cheapest price. And within the tech side of Amazon, I don't think this will be changing anytime soon, but it may be changing on the blue-collar side. You see, when you're a small company and you're churning through a bunch of employees, it's not really a big deal. But when you're at Amazon's size with over 1 million employees, you actually run the risk of running out of people to churn through. And ironically, this is the exact crisis that Amazon has been facing since mid-2021. According to leaked internal research, Amazon will run out of warehouse workers to churn through by 2024, which at this point is only 8 months away. A looming recession may give Amazon some more time, but sooner or later, they'll have to confront the consequences of churning through so many people. In the end, the reason Amazon wants their employees to resign simply comes down to productivity and financials. They believe that the most productive employees are the ones that have just joined or have something to prove. So they structure all of their compensation plans and corporate performance policies around milking out these first few years of productivity for as cheap as possible. Everything from their compensation policy and vesting schedule to their performance improvement plans and work culture is all designed to get engineers to join, but not stay for long. By this point, most engineers are well aware of the harsh reality of Amazon. But Amazon is able to leverage the reputation of AWS to continue recruiting engineers. On the warehouse side of things though, they're up for a massive challenge not too long from now, but only time will tell how they handle this situation, and that's why Amazon wants their employees to resign. Did you know about these clever yet disgusting tactics? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you hope that Amazon is forced to change things for the better. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community, suggest future video ideas, and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.